chainers, wherever you are in the world. This is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain.
Hello there. Good morning. I am Chelsey Reynolds, filling in for the beloved Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, and we've got some great topics this morning and a stellar guest for today's show. And surprise, we are both in Charlotte, North Carolina. So first up, we've got a new episode of the week to shout out. There it is. This week, we've got Craig Barth from Premier Trailer Leasing, who talks about understanding if your business needs to buy, rent, or lease, and then leveraging fleet management for your success. So check that out. It's new this week. And then without further ado, let's introduce our guest, Mr. Reade Kidd. Hey, Reade.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm pretty good. What are you up to? What do you do?
What I do? I lead the show here at EDRAY in Charlotte, as you mentioned. Been at it about 6 years, rethinking kind of how we put tech and manage transportation around the import supply chain. So a lot of fun here. Before this, Home Depot, and before that, I was about a dozen years with Maersk.
Very cool. And is this your office there?
Yeah. So this is Charlotte, North Carolina, home here. Office out in Long Beach, California as well. But family and I moved here about 5 years ago, and yeah, been off to the races.
Very cool. Do you have any market insights you want to share with the crew today?
So no one's following any of the news on tariffs or anything like that. So this would be breaking news. But yeah, excited to kind of see what happens, 90-day sort of stay of what's happening there. Super concerned around empty positioning and what that looks like coming back, but also kind of excited about maybe getting some things back to work as we've got a bit of a stay here coming up.
Excellent. You want to dive right into this week's poll?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So each week you guys will see a poll. What would you do here, Reade, if you could swap jobs for a day?
Oh, Rockstar for sure.
You would do Rockstar?
For a day?
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Why not? How about you?
I was a failed rock star in my 20s, so a real rock star would be pretty cool.
There you go.
And maybe a house flipper, like someone on HGTV. That'd be picking all the files. Yeah.
Get behind that. Would you swing the hammer, or would you be the one that comes behind in the designs?
Both.
Oh, okay. Why not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've never gotten to use one of those big scoopy things either. The excavators. Hey, good morning, David. So I would use one of those too. If I could like rip up the ground, I'd like to do that for a day.
I think that's what they call it, a big scoopy thing. So right.
It's the official term. All right. Well, you want to dive into our topics?
Let's do it.
We've got 3 today. So first, hot topic. Manufacturers like Tesla, Apple, and even MGA Entertainment, who makes a ton of toys, like those Bratz dolls, they are looking to move parts or all of their sourcing in reaction to the tariffs. And this is changing daily. But this article dives a little bit into it. And for Reade, how does a switch in sourcing locations or changes like this impact the shippers' stateside operations?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, it's a moving target. Every week, every day seems to change. So you're kind of trying to make a bet on something you don't fully know. So the sort of change management is hard when you don't know what the outlook actually holds. But what you're starting to see on the state side is that as you shift from one geography to another, you're not shifting the whole network. So you're shifting parts. So if you had 100% sourcing from China, for example, and then you start pushing a little bit from Indonesia, some from Vietnam, et cetera, now you have combinations and permutations of vessels, of ocean carriers that call certain locations, et cetera. So it certainly introduces more complexity on the water. And then on the other side, a bit of a sort of general statement would be as sourcing moves west, port of call in the U.S. moves east. So if you're in Europe, you're more likely to come in through a port of call on the East Coast of the United States versus something like China, Japan, something that's a bit more Eastern Asia, would then be more prone for a West Coast port of call, just sort of generally speaking. So you're getting a lot more combinations, a lot more permutations, which make the overall sort of wrangling coming into the U.S. A bit more complicated than the past.
And then what are some smart ways? You've talked about diversification and the importance of that, especially with someone's drayage. What are some smart ways you've seen shippers diversify in the past or now?
Yeah, I think so it kind of depends on how you look at your import supply chain. So if you're a manufacturer, you're thinking about the lift and shift on manufacturing locations. If you're more able to do closer assembly, et cetera, you're kind of thinking about how I can move things from that perspective. A lot of customers are relooking at their DDP programs, their PO. Those are kind of where they buy the freight in the cycle and seeing if they should take more control or less control based on country of origin and kind of where things are coming out of. So you're seeing a lot more happening there, which then just begs the question of how do you make sure you have a resilient import supply chain? So what we're seeing is, a couple of carriers mix, a forwarder in the mix that may or may not have been in the past, or more direct ocean carriers if only forwarders were in the past. On the dray side, certainly combinations, different ports of call, ports that weren't conventionally like the main ports of call in the U.S. becoming interesting as that diversification happens. So curious to kind of see as that plays forward, but certainly kind of an explosion of ports of origin and then ports of destination.
And how does your team help and fit into this?
Yeah, so I mean, if you look back 10, 15 years ago, this whole import supply chain was email to one group to start the next process, email the next group to start the process. And what's happening in today's world is everything kind of wants to happen at the same time. The dray carrier getting their forecast and their allocations, the customs broker clearing at the same time, the DC preparing, chassis provisioning, getting ready, rail availability, et cetera. And so there's a lot more coordination that needs to happen today than before, and all kind of at the same time. So you can't wait for the thing before to finish before the next thing starts. And so at EDRAY, our tech and our teams manage on behalf of the shipper those 7 stakeholders. So whether it's ocean, customs, terminal, rail, dray, chassis, DC, we're in that mix with our teams and our tech, helping to absorb that complexity for our customers and make a seamless experience for them as they continue to diversify and create more resiliency for their import supply chain.
Awesome. Well, let's keep rolling with the second topic here. This article is, and there we go. It's a big shift ahead for how we handle small value packages. So let's talk about de minimis, did I say it right? Ruling, what it means, and the impacts all of these changes will have. So to start off, I'm just going to lob it to you. Can you break this down? What is this de minimis in a nutshell?
Yeah, I mean, pretty simply speaking, there is a threshold of $800 for not needing to effectively pay duties on imports. So if you kind of think about a personal experience going through customs, you can bring in a bottle of wine from Italy and you don't pay duties on that. It's kind of a similar program, but it's been a way for folks to ship e-com into the United States and be under that threshold so that you don't have to pay the tariffs on that. So the trade-off between kind of air freight, expense, velocity of goods, storage and holding in a distribution center in the U.S., and then also that last part being the duties, all kind of came together as a nice story for folks like Temu and Shein, et cetera, that have been able to ship directly from origin to the end consumer. With that changing, now there's a bit more of a headwind from an expense perspective that's creating some pretty big financial headwinds, a relatively low valued item in the air and do what they've been doing historically.
So this, my head's spinning about all the little changes that will have to be made for e-com companies. What are some of the pivots that are going to have to happen with this change?
Well, certainly you need to start clearing. So finding a solid customs broker out there that can help and support do that work. These transactions are in the millions, and so it's no small feat for somebody. And then depending on what the item it is and classification, all these things that go with that, it's a pretty challenging, daunting task in and of itself. So the first part is clearly making sure you have a good customs broker that can help you stay compliant and do the right thing there. Secondly, what I would say is that people are having to rethink kind of what goes in the air, if they hold inventory positions and what that wants to look like from a sort of conventional import supply chain versus putting it in the air. So a lot of questions around kind of what converts from air to ocean, what converts from air to ocean plus physical distribution in the US. So in other words, instead of on a plane from China or Vietnam or India or Cambodia, wherever it comes from, directly to your house, in a container, to a port, to a distribution center, and then that package going from there to the end consumer, and kind of rethinking what that import supply chain wants to look like. I had a chance to live in Spain for a few years, and I was in Portugal for a project with a company that shipped to, I think it was Office Depot or somebody. It was the cork boards, a lot of the background that we have here. And they got a new contract with, again, I think it was Office Depot. And so they said, hey, we're really excited, and we want to ship this to the US and get going. And we said, okay, well, how much inventory do you hold? And we need to start holding inventory in the US to support this new business. And how can we help you and support you? And they said, well, we don't have inventory. We do this thing called make to order. So you place an order, and then 30 days later, we have it ready. Had to kind of communicate the idea that it's 30 days to make it, plus the transportation to the US. And these were big cork boards to the US and ship. So you have 45 to 60 days to be ready for that next order. And we said, well, how long from when Office Depot fulfills the order do you have to have it to them? They said 5 days. So they had a 65-day normal problem or normal sort of supply chain that wanted to move to a 5-day. So they had to rethink inventory holding positions and forecasting and all the things that kind of go with a longer import supply chain. So the question kind of becomes how to think through all that. I don't know if this is exactly why, but you've seen some partnership with like Simon Properties, so Spark tying up with and Forever 21 and Shein getting some kind of physical distribution around that. So, I mean, speculation, of course, but I'll be curious to see how many more people kind of align with physical brick and mortar retail, or at least 4-wall facilities to be able to do that. So, yeah, curious kind of to see how all that plays out for sure.
Can you see any silver linings of any sort on landside?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think that sort of with any sort of challenges, somebody wins and some people don't win, and I think there's an opportunity to win. So those who do that well and figure out the best mousetrap for the space will win. And so I think this can make some new winners, some new sort of fulfilled by whatever companies out there that can step in and create that physical footprint for companies that don't have the infrastructure to do that, but still want to play in the e-commerce space as well. So I'm excited about kind of seeing what networks sit and support to sit around this to support it. But also I think there's going to be certainly some winners that come out of this and some losers. So I would say that the silver lining is, those that figure this out will certainly, have a stronger position in the market on the other side. So.
Excellent. We've got a few comments here. We've got people who want to be gamers going all the way back. And we've got Rob in Tennessee. Hello, Rob. We're not too far away in North Carolina here. And I'll be in Tennessee next week at home delivery.
My sister's a Vol, so we'll sort of on behalf of my sister say go Vols, but Auburn Tiger here, so I only say that mildly begrudgingly. So, and then David, sort of the sourcing shifting from India. I think it's interesting. I think that's sort of the $1 million question, and not just India, but sourcing from the U.S. and setting up physical distribution and physical manufacturing. here in the US, or, I was talking with somebody the other day that said that Canada and Mexico have long time been sort of your allied position in terms of like, I'll get it close, but not here strategy. And then you start seeing, okay, is that even the right strategy given, the dynamics? It's a hard time. The decisions that some people make need to be amortized over 10, 12, 15 years in some cases. And you're being asked to do that with sort of a 90-day outlook. And I think that's really hard for lots of folks.
For sure. All right. We got one more question for you, one more article read. And this has been a theme throughout this whole call, is the yo-yo feeling around tariffs. So this article is pretty doom and gloomy for the holiday season and for some of our big shopping days here, but I think it'll be important to get your take on it, Reade. So with all this uncertainty, what are some knee-jerk reactions or rushed mistakes you've seen folks make that they should probably pause and try to avoid in this yo-yo time?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple folks out there that are super strong in the space of sort of country of origin and things like that. If you guys don't follow Pete Mento, he's a great guy that's got a really good insight on a lot of these things. Like, you got to be really careful of someone saying, hey, we can source this from Vietnam tomorrow, let's go. Because the idea of popping up X product tomorrow in Vietnam may be a bit of a red flag, or wherever else, given the fact that takes some time. So falsification of country of origin, things like that, got to be super careful on those things. There's a lot of false information narratives out there I think people are jumping on that just kind of be, if it sounds really good, then just kind of be careful as to if it is really that good. You're seeing a lot of in-bond, FTZs, kind of hold, don't clear yet strategies that I think are fantastic. And there are a number of great groups out there in the past. In my past life, we used, George Zaharatos and the guys at KPMG, for example. They were fantastic in like consulting and helping navigate through some of the stuff. So there's some really good people out there to help with kind of navigating that. So I'd be careful, kind of knee jerk around that side. But I also think that you need to be careful on what this looks like for out periods. One of my favorite questions that we've been kind of batting around with customers ours is, Halloween. Does the customer come to your store for Halloween and while they're there buy something else? Or do they come to your store for something normal and happen to buy Halloween, for example? And so the question is, like, is that something you're willing to take a loss on? Is that something you're willing to, draw them into the store for the attachment value for the other products? And if that's the case, then it doesn't necessarily have to stand entirely on its own, because you can see a boost of sales in other areas. Or the other side says, hey, they're just going to grab it while they're here. So my normal product continues to sell. And this product I need to think about. What I think is pretty surprising from a manufacturing and a transportation lead time is that, depending on the product, it could be 30, 60, 90 days from creating the order to actually having it ready to ship. And then once it's ready to ship, another 30 days. And then after it gets here, holding for a few weeks to be ready for store set, et cetera. So companies like last week are deciding on Halloween for the import supply chain, right? And 2 weeks from now, they're going to start talking about holiday and Christmas, et cetera. And so that to me is the really interesting part, where you're sitting there as, name your retailer, trying to guess as to what's going to happen in 3 months when this stuff ships, and then when it actually comes through. So fascinating times in terms of like trying to make those calls. Kind of unfortunate that it's a 90-day as opposed to we know the answer to the test, because people can react better to an answer to the test versus arguably still a bit of uncertainty. So you're going to get a bunch of people shipping and trying to push through over the next 90 days, clear out inventory from origin, push. That's going to create a swell at destination. Empties already need to get back to get loaded. Blank sailings are coming in, so empties are sitting. Ports are piled up with empties. Those have to get back to get reloaded. That takes 30 days. So there's just going to be this tsunami that comes, and then who knows what happens in 40 days, 50 days from now. And so we're in a bit of this kind of push and wait. And I don't think that's particularly good for a robust import supply chain, but looks like what we're dealing with for now. So.
And in this article, one of the folks that was interviewed talked about, I'm just boarding up shop and I'm waiting. Other than that type of strategy, is there any sort of proactive step you can recommend that a shipper takes during this yo-yo time?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, you're clearing upon entry, and so you're paying duties upon entry. So folks that have been able to bring in and sit in a bonded facility and not yet enter, I think are kind of probably in the best position. The folks that have FTZs and other things around that, where they can kind of decide when they clear, I think is probably the best strategy for the moment. I've seen folks from origin try to hold in, Tanjung Pelepas and their kind of interim ports of call, put off the vessel, sit there and kind of wait. So you're kind of closer, but not all the way here. So a couple of different scenarios, but really all around like how close can I get it, and then be ready to pull the trigger as things change.
And then across all three of these topics, how's your team at EDRAY handling this for your customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like most folks, the last week or two, volume continues to come down just as a general statement. So an opportunity to engage with our customers, talking what they're going to do when the volume comes back, et cetera, kind of looking up and out on that side. I'll tell you that every single one of our customers is looking for on cost. So you can't potentially do anything directly with the tariffs, like sort of directly. Where else can you save on that? So folks are looking at how they procure the network, ports of call they can take that might be a more cost-effective ocean carrier or mix, balancing between spot and dedicated space and contracts. Chassis provisioning, lots of folks interested in moving into more of a dedicated model on chassis, because there's some big dollars there. So really kind of our customer base and helping create new opportunities for them to figure out other ways to save money while they've got headwinds that they may or may not be able to control.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us. Reade Kidd, if you don't know him, he's sassy, he's funny, and he's almost too smart, and I can't understand what he says sometimes, but you broke it down simply enough for me to get your points today, so I appreciate that. Let's wrap up with some events that are coming up. We've got one event next week in Charlotte that we'll both be at, which is Seed the South. You're going to be talking there?
Yep. Next Tuesday. Yep.
Tuesday. And then these are some official in-person events with Let's Talk Supply Chain. We've got Sarah's at Coupa. And then there'll be Home Delivery World next week, and then TMSA Elevate. So if you don't follow Let's Talk Supply Chain yet on LinkedIn, follow away and you'll get these events popping up each week for you. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining. Hope that the yo-yo kind of stops going like this for everybody, and you have a great rest of your day.